Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Go out and try your luck, you may be down or done. Hooray for Hollywood. Hooray for Hollywood.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Hollywood Knitter. My name is Allison and I'll be your host. I'm recording on Saturday, December 1st. It's December 2018 from my house in Los Angeles, California. I have a lot of stuff in front of me. It's been a few weeks to record. I have a fair amount of knitting stuff to show with you, as well as tell you about what's been going on in my life, including my recent trip to Japan. And yeah, so let's get started with FOs. I also have a little cat that's down below who thinks I'm talking to her as usual. She's been a little antsy this morning. Anyways, let's start with the Pearl Ridge cowl. This, if you remember last time, is a cowl I knit entirely twice. Yes, the first time I knit it, I did a different cast on edge and it rolled and I didn't like it. So I ripped it out and redid it because it was really fast. But that means I've been technically working on it since June. Anyways, this is Premier Yarns Sweet Roll and Silver Swirl. So that means it is 100% acrylic. This is going to be a gift for my sister who is allergic to wool of any type and mohair and everything that's not acrylic basically. So, yeah, I'm really liking this. I ended up changing it and I did the I-cord bind, cast on and bind off. So let me show you which is which. Okay, so this is the cast on and it ended up that the holes were a little too wide. And so at the end, to take care of that, because I did not like the look, I did a slip stitch edge with the same yarn to close that up a little, and I like it much better now. You can't really see that there's a big gap. And then my bind off was an I-cord bind off, which is lovely. Very lovely. So it doesn't really curl at all. And then I just pinned it out. I washed it and pinned it out. And yeah, I used about 270 yards. It was a little over one full skein to do this. So I have quite a bit left and I'll probably actually use those for Mother Bears. And I apologize, this is my early Saturday morning look, basically. But yeah, so one of the few Christmas gifts I'm going to be doing, I usually do give my sister a cowl. It's something she wears, though I worry I've given her a few cowls, but what ends up happening is she wears them and then she leaves them somewhere but it's not a big deal. This was Premier Yarns was actually a gift from my friend who last year, who is not a knitter but knows I like yarn, so I went to Joann's and picked me up some yarn. So I appreciate it. And it actually, with the gradient grays, really look cool. And then with the pops of the pearl rows, it's just 4 rows stockinette and knit and then a row of pearls. So I think it turned out really nice. And even my edge where I switched it, it's not horrible. So that was one FO. The other FO is the hat I cast on for my boyfriend because I wanted to bring him a hat in Japan when I met up with him because it was going to be cold. And I picked up this yarn right before I left from Stitches SoCal, and it's 42 DK from Forbidden Fibers in the I Said colorway. And this is the Lake Reed hat by Sita Creeds. And there you go. It's just basically, it's got an easy cable here and then another little cable detail here. It's kind of hard to see in this variegated yarn. And then I did the extra long, which I'm not a big fan of the flashing, but since it's just on the part for the ears, it's not a big deal. I much prefer where I just have the flecking kind of from the colors. So I worked on this on the plane on the way over there. I did not finish it before, oh, let's focus. Sorry about that. I did not finish it on the plane. I actually was finishing it the day let me speak. I worked on this before I went, and I had the 4 inches done, and then I had done the first cable, and then I worked on the plane over. But because it's cabling, I could only do a few bits before my hand started to cramp up a little. So then I finished it on the plane to Sapporo, the inter-Japan flight I took while I was over there. So it was all ready, and in Sapporo, Japan, it was just way northern Japan. It's way cooler, so it was in the 40s. So he got to wear it. I used most of the skein, so about 90% of it, so 80% of it, 185 yards. And I could put it on my head. It's just a tight beanie type hat, but with this, be able to cover the ears. And I probably could have made another cable before I started the decreases, because you can see when I fold this over, I like it when it covers the line basically. And it was funny, while we were over there and he's wearing it, I'm watching him, I'm looking at him wearing it, and he's wearing it inside out. And I just looked at it and I'm like, that's not right. But it looks cool on the opposite eye too. And then I was like, you know what, you can wear it either way, but cables out is the way to actually wear it. So that was nice. The only thing different I did on this, which I hadn't done before, and it took me a few times to do, was a tubular bind off, which looks beautiful in the rib. You can't tell at all, and it's super stretchy and it doesn't flare. But it was time consuming because I sort of did the one that you cast on almost like a waist yarn and then you knit into it. I think I followed a Purl Soho tutorial on how to do that. So those are my 2 FOs, and I'm very happy with them. I'm gonna put them over here because I have a lot of stuff in front of me. Now, my whips. I have 5. The big one, which I'm so far along on. And as I pull out the mini yarns, this is my Markley sweater by Elizabeth Doherty. And you can see I have the whole body done, and I'm working on the sleeve. And I even already picked up from the neckline. Now, I was pretty sure, as I said, I striped this because I didn't have enough of the gray, and I really like the striping. It's, the gray is Miss Babs Tart and Pewter. The orange is Miss Babs Tart and Marigold, and then the kind of multicolored with orange is 716 Knit in Kathy's Nice and All. But I knew as I was getting to the bottom that I was going to run out. So I ended up doing the ribbing, kind of the edging in the orange, which I had enough of, which I like. So then I also picked that up and carried that color around the neckline, which I also like. In the back, it's kind of got a longer bottom, so you can see there's more of a strip of the gray because it's done with short rows. And however, I have picked up for the one sleeve and I'm working on it. And it also has some short rows at the top to kind of make it fall down. And I'm doing, whenever I have short rows, rather than mess around with stripe sequence, I just did the gray. But I measured my gray when I started for both my sleeves, and I had 55 grams left. And these are big skeins. These are like 100 and I think 10 or 20 grams, and they're like the tart. And so I was like, well, maybe. So I started going, and I have this much done, and I've already gone through 15 grams. So I just looked at it, and these are supposed to be full sleeves. And I'm not gonna have enough of the gray. I'm not. So I went looking on Ravelry to see if anyone had maybe used it in a project, had a partial ball. That really didn't work. And then I looked in my stash to see if I had any other gray yarns that were similar, because it is striped, that potentially could work, and I didn't. So I actually ordered another skein. Now, I picked this yarn up 4 years ago. And it's always a risk when you're ordering, you know, a hand-dyed colored yarn. It is a tonal, so I'm hoping they match it fairly well. But yeah, so I am not working on this until that skein comes in so that I can stripe it in, and probably I want it to be at least matching. So I might switch, I might alternate the grays if there's too much of a difference. So, I'll finish out this gray that I'm doing, do the next stripe, but then the next gray would be with the new yarn and then alternate that way, at least a portion of it, and then make sure I have enough for when I pick up the next sleeve that I would have enough to do this large portion. Anyways, what I do love is that I have so much of it done. Fingering weight takes me forever, and my plan is to wear this at Christmas back home when I go see my family. And since I only have the sleeves to do, even though they're fingering, once I get that yarn in, I think it will probably take me another, maybe a week, week and a half to do, and then I will finish it all up. So my goal is to have it done by, I fly out the 21st, so by the 20th. And again, that's the Markley by Elizabeth Doherty, and it's in my Fat Squirrel bag in the orange that matches. So beautiful. The other project that I have been working on, which was a travel project, or kind of my socks that I've been going on that I brought with me to Japan, I finished one, and this is the Query yarn in it's October colorway. So I finished one, and I'm following the pattern. It's Mathematician's Toe Up pattern. So it actually has a gusset and kind of an actual heel flap. I find these heel flaps fit me better when I go to the socks I have. I like a Fish Slips Kiss heel in terms of the ease of doing it. I can do it very quickly. But in terms of fitting my feet, I've noticed that I really should do some type of gusset because I have a high instep. And so I'm trying out this pattern. It's very detailed. He's got a lot of information on how to do socks and things in there. And yeah, so I'm happy with how it fits. I did my typical, I make my leg length. This is kind of how I do it. I make it the same length as the sock. So my foot is 10 inches. So the whole leg when I do it is 10 inches. And then I cast on for the next one, and I got the toe done, and I'm this far along. But I'm going to have to put that aside for some gift knitting, and it will come with me as a kind of travel project once I finish the other project. So those are just knit socks, Mathematician pattern, and yeah. The next pattern, so I wanted to bring a sock and the hat and then another project with me, and I wanted it not to be fingering because I noticed that I can knit a lot longer if I'm using different weights of yarn. I'm sure most people have figured that out. So I cast on for a shawl that I had in my queue with yarn that I picked up in Austin. Gosh, when did I pick it up? 2018? No, 2016, I think. April 2016. And this is Keep Austin Warm is the project. And the yarn is actually from the yarn shop there, Hill Country Weavers. And it's their KB's Twist, which is a wool mohair tencel blend. It's a DK weight. Kind of see, it's got sheen. And I saw this project actually there at the shop when I went, and I liked it. It's a shawl with stripes, and then it has a lace section, more stripes, and then we have a lace section in the gray, and end off with more stripes. And then theirs actually had fringe, which I'm still deciding whether I'm going to do it or not. But I definitely picked this up and got the pattern and had it in my queue and wanted to make it from the yarn, which I don't do very often, but it's knitting up really fast, really easy, memorizable kind of thing. The lace pattern I actually have to watch, but the stripes are super easy. And this is Keep Austin Warm by Francois Denoy. And I started it right before I left. I didn't actually knit on it hardly at all when I was there. Really just took up space. I should have relied upon my normal kind of thing, which is just to bring socks when I travel, because especially if I'm not going to a knitting event, socks are really all I need. And I didn't have time in the room or something else. I thought on the plane even, but it's a big bag and these are big yarns, and I ended up really just working on finishing the hat and then working on socks, and that was it. The next thing that I cast on for actually last night, and this is supposed to be a Christmas gift, potentially, for my niece, because when she was here this summer, she requested kind of tie-dye-ish socks. and she picked out this yarn based on how we saw it knit up. And it's a sock blank by Gail's Art, and it was from her club last year. Winter is something, and it's just really cool sparkles and colors. And so she requested knee socks. She is 8. So I am knitting it up for her. This is how it's knitting up. I love how this knits up. It's so pretty. And what I'm doing is I'm doing a rib top. So last time I did them, they were a little too tight. I'm using the same stitch count that I used for her last socks, her Rose City Rollers. But I'm also then doing the rib on the top so they have more stretch. So these should be good. Yeah, so I just started on these last night actually, and I got this much done. It's fun to do socks a little smaller. These are on 64 stitches and on 2.25 needles. And what I have noticed is my gauge is tighter. I'm actually 10 stitches to the inch. So I did, and I don't know if you do this, but I started one in the sock blank and I couldn't figure out why on the ends it kept catching and I'd have to like do a loop and go through. But I was so positive I started on the right end and I didn't. I'm like, well, let me pull yarn on the other end and see. And then it, you know, ripped with no problems. And so I actually cut the yarn and picked up from the other end and started knitting. Live and learn, live and learn. But I'm hoping to finish these, maybe. I don't know, we'll have to see. I'm not 100% committed to Gilmore Christmas, but I could knit on them while I'm there and at least get the first sock done so that I can make sure that it's the right size before I knit the second one. Because it is hard for me to do gift socks without having the person there to try the sock on. I'm a good knitter, but I think I knit everything so tight or so perfect to a foot that if it's a little off, then it's off. So those are my socks I'm knitting for my niece. And then I cast on, or I'm about to cast on. Technically it isn't a cast on yet, but it will be directly after this podcast. So I told you guys last time I bought the advent calendar from Suburban Stitcher, and I am going to be knitting an advent project. So I picked the Adventure Scarf and Wrap by Amber O'Brien, and I don't think I have a picture. I didn't print it out. But I am going to be using a bag I picked up at Stitches West this year, which I haven't used yet, which I love, is Owls. I realized I have a lot of bags, no Christmas bags. So I'm going to use this one because it makes me happy to look at. And then I opened my first skein, and these are 20 grams. So it's just really great speckled greens with the little pops of red. And I'm going to cast on and try to keep up. Then I'm also, because I'm anticipating I won't necessarily use all this, so I'm going to be keeping. She has hers in little envelopes, and so I went ahead and measured the grams that I started with, which this one was 20.88 grams. And I'm going to measure it when I'm done, and I'm going to put it back in here with the number, because she did send a list of what all the colorways were. And I kind of want to keep that, or figure out, maybe put a tag on it so I know what the colorway is later, if I want to do like scrappy socks or put it in my blanket or something else. So technically not a whip yet, but it will be by the end of this day. I did just go to cast on before this, and then I didn't give enough length for the cast on, so I had to pull it out and redo it. And I did decide to do the wrap. I was trying to decide between the scarf and the wrap. I think I would wear the scarf more, but I don't really have any wraps. And so yeah, I figured even with the wrap, I could fold it in half because this is all fingering weight, and wrap it around my neck. So excited, so excited. So those are my whips. I haven't touched my blanket. Maybe after the new year, after I get all this stuff done, my linen stitch blanket. I haven't knit any new ornaments, which is fine because I'm not going to be here for Christmas now, so I'll gonna push that project to next year. I'm actually not even decorating. I'm not a big decorator. I do usually put a Christmas tree up and put some lights and stuff up, but since I'm not going to be here, I'm just not feeling like doing it. And my boyfriend isn't a big decorator, doesn't care. So I'm feeling Christmassy, I just don't have my house decked out. Now I will be going to see my family for the first time in umpteen years. And I think my mom told me they're having 5 Christmas trees in the house. So maybe that's why I don't do so much, because my family goes a little overboard. Literally, like, my brother has one, my sister has one, my niece has one, my mom has one, and then I think there's a spare somewhere. I mean, and they have a big house, but yeah, 5 Christmas trees. In addition to all the other all the other beautiful Christmas decorations my mom has. She's big into Christmas. So I have a few acquisitions. I'm going to show you one that I actually bought at Stitches SoCal that I talked to you about, but I wasn't able to show you. And this is from Chappie's Arts and Crafts, and they're usually at Stitches West, and they were at Stitches SoCal, and they do the sock blockers, the wooden sock blockers. And I wanted a pair of sock blockers for my boyfriend, because he's got a little bigger feet than me, and his socks didn't show off great on the sock blockers. So I bought this is a men's large, and then I got the maple leaf, and that was a custom that they did for me, and I'm really liking them. They're beautiful. So what's going to happen is they're going to hang up on the wall next to my other sock blockers, and I'll have a pair of his socks and a pair of my socks. That's how it works in my house. And then when I make the next pair, that's when you can wear them. So I will put a link if you guys are looking. They have so many different cutouts you can choose from. Dogs, cats, you know, leaves. I mean, hundreds of cutouts and different sizes. So you can make them, you know, small, medium, large. You know, it's harder to find the men's sizes. And they have an Etsy shop that you can order it all on. And I love them. They're just beautiful. I love wooden sock blockers. I think they're decorative in their own right. And I really like the maple leaf. And I think it's beautiful, the cutout that they did. So really happy with these. I'm gonna put them up on the wall after this. Then Japan. So I went to Japan, and I was joining the boyfriend on a work trip he was doing on the 2nd week. Mainly because he had the weekend free and then evenings and stuff, so I figured he would have enough time, and it was awesome. Flew into Osaka to meet him there, and got in there. So on the plane, I flew American Airlines, which was fine. I didn't sleep at all. This is how I try to avoid jet lag to an extent, is try to figure out the time that you're going to be there. So I left here at, I think my flight was at like 11, and got into Japan 5 o'clock the next day, because you're going over the dateline. And I basically stayed up the 12 hours on the flight, watched a ton of movies, and knit. I knit on the socks, and then I knit on the hat until I couldn't knit anymore, and then I just watched movies. And then I had a connecting flight through Tokyo into Osaka, and that was relatively easy. Japan is very organized. They make it easy, and a lot of them, at least when the airports, you know, speaks enough English. So it was really easy to transfer to the domestic flight, which was with Japan Airlines, and then get over to the terminal. And I had a 2-hour connection window, and I got over through immigration, picked up my bag, got it all checked, rechecked my bag domestically, got to security, took the bus to the new terminal, and I did that all in like an hour and a half. And then had about 15 minutes before they boarded my next flight. So it was perfect. One of the interesting things in Japan, they let you take open bottles of liquids through security. All they do, because I had some water that on my international flight that I had in my bag that I forgot to take out. And when I went through security, they're like, oh, can we check this? I was like, check it. I thought I was going to have to chuck it. And they have a little like machine, and they just, you know, shoot something through there to tell if it's water basically, or juice or something else. So very, very civilized at the Japanese. And I noticed that on my other domestic flights, that you can bring liquids through security. Why can't we do this in the US, people? Anyways, so then I got on my domestic flight to Osaka, which was all businessmen, all like 95% businessmen. I'm assuming because it was a Friday, there's a lot of people who I think live in or work in Tokyo during the week and then maybe go home or things like that. Got into Osaka. nobody was there to meet me, which is fine. There was some talk about maybe them coming to meet me, and I was like, I can get myself to the hotel, which what I did. I took basically a bus to Osaka Station, which is where the hotel was near, and then I walked, I don't know, half a mile or so to the west end. Maybe not even half a mile. And I was getting really tired as I got in there, so by the time I got to the hotel, it was 8 o'clock in Japan. I'd been up for 24 hours, 25 hours, and so I basically got there. My boyfriend was still at dinner, and I crashed. But at 8 o'clock in Japan, when it's a good time to crash. So I did have a little jet lag. I was up at like 4:30 in the morning, but that was fine. Then that next day, they had arranged for us to go to Kyoto. They had a person escort us from the company, and then we rented a car, and we went to some different shrines. And I'd been to Kyoto before. Kyoto, if you don't know, is just a 45-minute train ride from Osaka. So we hopped on the train, got there, and then when we got to Kyoto, we went to like a tour agency and got a driver and a car, and then we could pick whatever shrines we wanted. And I was with my boyfriend and his coworker, and that was awesome. So we went to 3 different shrines that I hadn't been to on my last trip to Kyoto, including the very famous one, and I can't remember the name, but it has all the torii gates. So all of the red gates and lots and lots and lots of them really close together. So very striking shrine and very big, lots of torii gates. Very beautiful, ton of people because it was a Saturday. And Kyoto was a tourist destination for even the Japanese, so there was a lot of people, but it was really fun to be able to, one, have a driver bring us up there so you didn't have to walk like I did last time. I walked a lot in Kyoto. We took public transportation. This time we were able to park right at the shrine, go up there. They were able to explain a little bit to us. Our driver didn't speak that much English. But if we had some questions, we asked our escort, he asked the driver, and we were able to get some things. Great pictures. And in the afternoon, one of the guys I was with, he wanted to go, he was looking at shrines. He's like, can we go to this one? And we went over there, and it was beautiful. And then he's like, okay, can we go see the monkeys? I was like, sure, I don't mind seeing monkeys. They were like snow monkeys. Didn't realize when I said, sure, let's go see snow monkeys, that we were going to hike up a mountain. That's what it was. So we get there, we go in, and then immediately there's these, like, I don't know, I did count them. So it was 120 steps going straight up. And I was like, because I thought at the top would be the monkeys. No. That was just the very, very little beginning of it. It was probably a mile, 3/4 of a mile to a mile hike straight up to go to where these snow monkeys, they have a preserve, basically an open preserve where they let them run around, and then they have a open area where you can feed them. But by the time I got up there, I was huffing and puffing. Was not expecting to do that. Didn't have any water. Like, I thought it would be a stroll. And what is crazy is that Japanese walk everywhere. Everywhere. That is why Japanese, I think, are so healthy. They walk and walk and walk and think nothing of walking. So both our driver and our guide, they were just walking, striding, not even a hitch in their strides. That my driver had to take his jacket off because he was wearing a suit. That was his only concession. But I made it up the hill and saw the snow monkeys, which I'm not a big fan of monkeys. Monkeys are mean, and these snow monkeys were mean. We saw, one of the males harassing a female with a baby on her back, and yeah. So we did that hike, and then at the end of it, they're like, oh, there's a bamboo forest in this area. They're like, oh, and I was like, I'm done. No, we don't need to see the bamboo forest. Or at least I thought I said that. I think I used a euphemism, and I can't remember what it was now, but it apparently didn't translate. So we're following the driver and the guide, and then they didn't go towards the car, and I'm like, oh, maybe there's a back way to the car. Nope, we were hiking to the bamboo forest. So we got to go to the bamboo forest too, and I was just like, okay. And then it's getting dark. It was already 5 o'clock by then, and we've been out since 9:30. Yeah, but it was beautiful. It was a wonderful day. Then we went back, and they had dinner. Everyone asked about the food in Japan. I was like, oh, sushi. Sushi is one small part of Japanese cuisine. They have lots of awesome things. And I actually only had sushi once the entire time I was there. So that night they ate freshwater eel, which was specially prepared. I'm not an eel fan, so I only had really the rice. I had a bite of it, but I'm not an eel fan in general. For lunch, we had like traditional Japanese. So I had a cold matcha soba noodle, which was really good. And one good thing about being with escorts is that, one, they spoke Japan, and we got to go to restaurants where English, or they don't have English menus, they're not used to seeing people, and we were able to get the full experience. So that was fun. We went for lunch. The driver recommended a place which was just local Japanese. It was set away from the street. You would have never found it. No English menu, and you went in and you actually were sitting low chairs on tatami mats, had to take your shoes off. Very traditional Japanese. It was awesome. Next day we were in Osaka. My boyfriend's coworker actually flew to support early with the escort and left me and my boyfriend in Osaka for the day by ourselves. So we went to Osaka Castle, and then we went to the Dotonbori area and just walked around, which is what I like to do. We went into one of the arcades, which are insane. They have, I think this one was 10 stories, like 3 stories of bowling alleys, 2 stories of karaoke, 3 stories of video games / the claw. There was a whole floor of just claw and just getting toys and candies and things like that. And then the dancing machine, the Dance Mania. It was awesome. And then you go down and it's actually video games they gamble on, like horse racing and other things like that. And it's just crazy. And it's just full of people. So many people. So anyways, that was awesome. And then the next day we flew to Sapporo, which is in the northern island of Japan. Much cooler up there and much more laid back. Lot of people have cars there because it's more like a suburb. Reminded me very much New England. The leaves were changing. It was very beautiful. It had mountains in the distance. It was in the 40s, very crisp. And they had a tour of the factory, and I just walked around. We also did a tour of the Asahi beer factory, which was interesting, but the tour was all in Japanese. So, but we did get to see some of the lines of the cans, and I'd been to many a beer factory tour. Pretty much beer is made the same way. I've been to the Heineken brewery. I've been to a Budweiser brewery. I've been to another brewery. But it was fun. And then in Sapporo, I walked to, they have like a funicular that goes up to the top of the mountain. And it was like 2.5 miles from the hotel. So I decided to walk because I love walking through neighborhoods and seeing how people live. And so I walked all the way over there, and it was closed. It has 2 weeks when it closes for maintenance, and it was during that time. So then I walked back, and it was starting to rain, and there were some other places I could have seen, but what I ended up doing is we had a beautiful view out the hotel, and I just hung out, and I went and bought some cool Japanese pastries, and I made myself a cup of tea, and I wrote in my travel journal, which I keep when I travel internationally, kind of just writing down, what I did and my different things. So when I look back at it and read it, I'll be able to remember these trips very well. And then dinner, both nights. Dinner every time was awesome. I think we had, one of the nights it was just like Japanese, they said bar food. It wasn't bar food. We had like a filleted fish, we had lobster, we had all sorts of things. And then the next night, the factory that they went to tour, their personnel took us out they're known in Sapporo for these all-you-can-eat kind of sheep barbecues. So it's 2 hours, and you grill your own meats, and they bring you all different ones, and it was delicious. Sorry, but it was delicious. Probably the best meal I had. They also had for dessert, which I did not want dessert, but they insist because they're very, very friendly. I got it's like a flan. It was like a pudding, and I tasted it, and it was amazing. It was like a flan with whiskey in it. It was so good. Like, I was super impressed with this. I actually took pictures of it. I'm going to try to figure out how to make it because it was so good. Then we flew from there back to Tokyo. We had moved our clothes because we were just doing an overnight in Nagano. So we just took a small suitcase for an overnight and left our big suitcases at the main hotel in Tokyo that we were going to stay at the following night. Went to Nagano, took the Shinkansen, which is the bullet train, which is love transportation in Japan. So easy to take the train, so on time. Nobody talks on the train. They have very much a polite culture. Nobody talks. Everybody has earphones. Nobody talks on the phone. If you have to take a call, you leave the main area. There's like ends with closed doors. The bathrooms on the train are super clean. So awesome. And it was only like an hour and 20 minutes to get from there to Nagano. In Nagano, we stayed at a hotel overlooking the train station, which I like because I got to see the trains come in and out. And we walked to a shrine that night and then had ramen for dinner, which was awesome. And it was just like one of those ramen places that are all over Japan that's got, you go in and it has just, it's just a very small area where they cook it and then, you know, a counter and you just wait. And ramen's no joke. You go in there, you eat your ramen, you leave. Like it's all about, and it was super good. Up around that area, they have, it's very convenient. A lot of the train stations have multi-level department stores, Japanese department stores. And so I basically the next morning when they went on the tour, just walked around and did a little shopping and picked up some gifts and just relaxed and spent 2 hours, or at least 2 hours, in Tokyo Hands, which is it's a craft store that they have affiliated with one of the department stores, and they have amazing paper products in Japan. So I picked up a lot of little gifts like that that I'm going to be giving for Christmas. And it was just fun to browse. I just browsed a lot. And it was nice to have that time because the kind of browsing I was doing is not something the boyfriend would enjoy. But there's just a lot of different things in Japan. Like I spent 20 minutes wandering the grocery store, just looking at all the different vegetables and fruits and the way they serve things that we do not do here. It was a lot of fun. Then we took the Shinkansen back to Tokyo and we were in Tokyo for 2 nights. Basically that night, the next day we had, the boyfriend and I had goals for different stores and different souvenirs I wanted to pick up, and that pretty much took us all over the city. We have very specific things that you buy in different parts of the city, and so we took public transportation, which I love doing. And it was funny because the escort from the company, both my boyfriend and his coworker are just clueless paying attention to the trains, and it's very complex because they have a lot of trains and public transportation in Japan, but it's also in English as well as Japanese. So I don't have a problem following it, but you do have to pay attention. And so the day was just the two of us. We were like, you know, we took the train a few times and figuring out the biggest thing in Japan is because their stations are giant. I mean, they have, 10 different lines coming into one station and 10 exits, is trying to figure out the right exit so you end up at the right spot from where you want. But we went to an area, he got a Japanese instrument, like a specialized Japanese traditional flute. And then we went to Shinjuku and picked up, is known for kitchenware. So it had all of the things that they sell restaurants, and it had lots of cool plates and knives and chopsticks, because chopsticks are a big deal. And then that night we went for a really nice sushi dinner. So that was the one night I had sushi, and we went to a high-end sushi place. It was delicious. And we were staying in Ginza area, so the business area. And then on Saturday we just did a little more shopping, like a little more souvenir shopping nearby. And then we took the train to the Narita airport, which is actually an hour by train outside of Tokyo, and flew back on Japanese Airlines, which was nice. Now on the way back, I barely knit. I was tired actually. So kind of had the meal and then knit a little bit, watched a movie, and then fell asleep for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. It was I think 9-hour flight. So I was asleep for a lot of it. Got back into LA. We left Japan at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we got back into LA the same day at 10 a.m. So we went back in time. It's actually kind of fun. And then got home. So the only thing I'm really going to show you is I did go to Okadaya, which is a craft store in Shinjuku. And I went into the yarn area. Not really, as I said, I had been to an Okadaya last time I was in Japan. But I ended up picking up some yarn souvenir because I was there and I liked it. And Noro. Now, I know you can get Noro here, but they have other Noro yarns that you don't see here. So I didn't get like a curry on or anything like that. This is actually a sock yarn called Neo. And it is 70% wool, 30% polyamide. But I just love the colors, the pinks and the greens. And I have another pair of Noro socks, curry on sock, that I really like. It is kind of, not scratchy, but it's a very sturdy wool. And I really like the other ones I have. So I picked up this. And then I picked up 3 skeins. And I want to show you because they're kind of different. They're all the same color, but if you look at what initially attracted me was this one, the orange. And then I was like, all right, I want to get 3 of these so I could do like a shawl or a cowl because it's like a DK. And it's called Kibu. It's a 54% cotton, 34% wool, 12% silk. And I was looking at the lots, but this one is the same as this one. See, you can see the orange in there. So this is going to be a really cool colors. So I picked up 3 skeins of it. And that's it. That's all I got for yarn. I did check out, they have a lot of US and UK brands in there actually. And then Okadaya is just amazing just because every floor is a different craft. And so we walked through every floor and just kind of checked things out. And they have makeup, they have wigs, they have anything you need for costuming. They had fabric, they had buttons, they had trims, they had fabric. I mean, it was awesome. Yeah, it was awesome. So I came back and then I proceeded to have jet lag-ish issues for the next few days, even though I went to work. Luckily, it was a short week, and then I had Thanksgiving, and we just did Thanksgiving at his family's, and it was nice. Oh, the only other bad thing, so I had a cat sitter while I was gone. I use a service, and I think she did not bring in my mail from my mailbox. She brought in my packages that were left at my door, but not what was put in my mailbox. So when I got back, I was expecting a few packages. One of them was a package that I had gotten delivered from Nomadic Yarns, of yarn I had ordered like 6 weeks before. And my mailbox was pried open. I'm sure it was over full, but it was pried open, and I'm pretty sure I had mail stolen, including my Nomadic Yarns package, which is really crappy. And I'm sure that when they opened it, they were not happy with getting a skein of yarn and a project bag. But yeah, so that was the only kind of bummer thing, but yeah, it happens. I attribute it to myself because I didn't, the mail should have been taken in. And what happens is big things like that. I'm sure it was big enough. It was small enough to fit into my mailbox through the slot, and then proceeded at that point to then take up the whole box, because sometimes the post office doesn't want to walk, up the flight of stairs to my front door. Packages they have to because they can't fit in the box, but anything that they can cram in there, they will. And as a result, I'm sure I had mail sticking out, and then someone was able to, it has a square box and it has a locked front. I usually even just go in my slot to pull my mail, but it has a locked front, and they just pried it open enough that they were able to pull everything out. So I hope someone out there is enjoying my yarn. I hope it did not end up in the trash, but anyways, so that was the only bummer. Yeah, so I've talked a little bit about going to see my family for a week. I'm excited. I have a mix of gifts from them from Japan, and then I have a few more things I have to buy, and then I will be done. and I'll be there for a week. And right now, the only thing I know we're planning on doing is a Patriot game on one of the nights when it will be super cold. My mom is already worried about making sure I'm going to have enough layers to stay warm because it's a night game in December. So if it's in the 20s, I'll be lucky. It could be less than that. So I will make sure to be wearing sweaters and knits, and I need to bring my gloves, and yeah, lots of knitwear. Then I'm going to Virginia Beach in February. I'm going to actually be on my ticket in the next few weeks. And then the Knockers Retreat is the only other thing I have definitively planned, but I am sure I will be doing. I've been looking at other retreats. There's a few that I started to just sort of monitor, or not monitor, just get emails about. And I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of fun. That'd be kind of fun. So I might add another retreat somewhere along the line. Anyways, that's all I got for you today. I think that's been enough. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. And the next time I talk to you, I think I'm going to try to record when I'm with my family, so you can kind of see what's there. And then I can show off my new sweater I will have, and some of these other gifts, hopefully, that I finished. Maybe I can even get pictures of the family wearing them. I don't always get that. If you are looking for me, I'm Allison1031 on Ravelry and Instagram. I don't usually do show notes, though I will link to a few of the special items that I have here. Otherwise, all my project information is in my Ravelry pages. I keep my Ravelry pages up to date, project pages. Yeah, I hope everyone has a wonderful December. I hope everyone who has an advent calendar is going to enjoy it. I'm so excited to see the yarn every day. That was the best present I gave myself. And I had to give it to myself in July. I think she sold them in July, so long time coming. Anyways, that's a wrap from Hollywood, where fantasy meets fiber and dreams are knit. Bye, everybody.